It's time for me to talk about Dark Souls. I've pretty much been wanting to do this since we started doing these vlogs, and even before that when you mentioned the idea. Because I've always wanted to explain, or at least try to explain, how I feel about it. Like the title says, Dark Souls is not just a game for me. It has genuinely helped me grow as a person and realize things in life that I didn't realize otherwise. I'd like to list off some of the reasons why I love Dark Souls. Every boss in Dark Souls has a unique move set and also has some very interesting weaknesses and strengths that make sense from a lore standpoint as well as a practical standpoint. The bosses all have really interesting lore that you can really look into, and it doesn't like shove it in your face or anything. It lets you discover it yourself, which is really cool. This sort of ties those two things in together, but for a specific boss that I'm thinking of, which is called the Abyss Watchers, it has a very interesting lore and gameplay representation. The lore of the Abyss Watchers is really interesting. The Abyss essentially turns everyone evil, and the Abyss Watchers were tasked with destroying that. The Abyss Watchers eventually got infected with the Abyss themselves. Do you know how someone discovered that? There's just traces of the Abyss on the Abyss Watchers' clothes. It didn't say that anywhere. It does say that they are attacking civilizations, and it just so happens that the civilization that they're next to was destroyed by the Abyss, essentially. So then they're tasked with killing themselves. So as you enter the boss room, they're fighting each other. They're repeatedly killing each other, but they're undead, so they can't die. So they just repeatedly kill each other for eternity. And you can see the corpses on the ground slowly rising up one by one to kill each other. So it's a really interesting fight, and the only one of its kind that has a boss that fights itself. That is where I find Dark Souls so interesting. It doesn't tell you these things, but as you're fighting the Abyss Watchers, you know something's off about them. It might just be because of the tragic music, or it might be because I know the story implications, and that just makes the fight more meaningful for me. I mostly just picked this fight because it's a fairly early fight, and it's the only one that I could get to in time, because I don't have any characters at the fight that I wanted to do, and this one was fairly close, so I could get to it, and I just happened to have a character that was really close to it. The real boss fight that I wanted to like sort of explore and talk about is in the second DLC. I'm not gonna spoil it. Anyway, I'm gonna stop rambling about the Abyss Watchers. It was supposed to only be like a couple second thing to talk about, and it turned into like half the video. So, yeah. Oops. I'd also like to talk about the meaning behind Dark Souls. It isn't just a hard video game. It's not hard for the sake of being hard. Hidetaka Miyazaki made Dark Souls as an allegory for depression. It's not just about killing bosses and fighting difficult creatures. It's about overcoming something that seems insurmountable, something that seems like you can't beat it. It's about overcoming those things. What Dark Souls is essentially trying to say is that hard work pays off. The harder you fight, the harder you work, it will pay off. This video was mostly inspired off of a lot of other videos involving Dark Souls. I'll try and put a link to most of them in the description. We'll see if I get all of them though, because there's quite a few. But yeah, thank you for watching, and sorry if it was a little bit out there and not really relatable because you guys haven't played it, unless you have. But yeah, thanks for watching.